Takarazuka Review Fan Podcast. Podcasts by fans from around the world where we get together to talk about Takarazuka news, shows, and anything we can think of. With you today are...
Hi, this is Becca from California.
And Carly from New York, but currently in Japan.
And Jen in New York. And today we have a very special Soragumi guest. Yay!
Yay!
Hi, I'm Julie. I currently live in Arizona, but I did live in Japan from on and off from 2006 to 2010. I was heavily into fandom at that time, and I'm very excited and honored to be a guest on this podcast.
I am so super excited about this.
Me too.
So, as you could guess, today's topic is going to be Soragumi, or Cosmos Troupe, which means that, holy cow, we made it through all 5 troops. Yay!
Yay!
Do you remember when we did the Hanagumi episode? How long has it taken us?
It's been about a year, I think. It's been a while.
But we did it.
This is exciting. Yes, we did it. So, today we're going to do the usual format, give you a little bit of history, a little bit of our favorites, and as always, we would love your comments and additions and fun stories. If you want to drop some in our blog, we would love to hear them. So, but before we get started on Soragumi, let's talk about things that have been making us happy lately. Who'd like to go first?
I'll go.
Yay!
I guess. Okay, I have 2 happy things. One of them is All for One, which is amazing. That's Tsukigumi's current show. I went to see it last week, and I thought it was going to be terrible. I legitimately thought I was going to have to sleep through it because, well, I was exhausted and sleep deprived, and it's a 2-act original Koike Sensei show, and
right.
I was hearing that it wasn't finished the final week of rehearsal. So
sounds like Koike.
I was gonna say.
I had really low expectations.
This is the one with Chapi-chan as the King Louis, kind of, maybe?
Yes, she is King Louis. I feel like I don't want to spoil this on the podcast, but yes. But it was so good. I'm scrambling to get as many tickets as I can before I leave next week. So that's amazing. I highly recommend it. It's a really fun show. And my other happy thing, which I'm going to try and say without crying because today was Taidan on the day that we're recording this, is that I have been a Snow Troop fan for a really long time, and I'm just really, really happy and grateful that I got over my fear of flying in my life early enough that I was able to witness this version of Yukigumi live, because I don't think I've ever collectively loved a troop more, and I'm really happy I got to see them. Not that they're all going anywhere, but I'm going to miss Chigi's Yukigumi a lot, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for all of the friends that I met because of them. It was an emotional day.
Yay.
I'm really glad you got to have that kind of closure and that experience. Taidan's hard, but it can be emotionally
really
satisfying
happy.
At the same time.
It's a celebration,
Yeah.
Everyone's celebrating the people and what great work they did, and it's a really fun feeling, actually, when you get caught up in it. When you're actually there, I think you really feel that sense of celebration in addition to that sense of goodbye.
Yeah.
You get both.
Definitely.
I think this is a great moment. Let's talk about what Taidan is. What is the word Taidan? What is Taidan? Because we've mentioned it before, but I don't know that we've really gone into it in detail.
Well, Taidan literally means, it actually, the kanji mean leaving the troop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they also use sotsugyou, which means graduation, because, as I'm sure you guys have explained, there's a lot of kind of school terminology that's used in Takarazuka.
Right. So they're graduating from Takarazuka. Oh, that makes it sad. But I think when we're talking Taidan isn't just the last performance. It's also, we've talked before
You're
about
sort of cutting ties. Well, not cutting ties, but like moving on to the next stage, whatever that stage may be. If it's like I'm leaving the acting world and becoming a homemaker, or it's a stage like an actual stage of outside performances, or I'm becoming a musician, pop star, who knows. But yeah, they're leaving the world, the big little fish pond, or whatever you want to call it. I like to use that term, big fish in a little pond, because I think that's kind of what Takarazuka is like, where you're this huge megastar within Takarazuka, but outside of it, it's like people might not even know who that is in Japan.
Right. And I think, like, Taidan, like, we've talked before about how fan clubs are like family. And Taidan is kind of a chance for the family to all get together and have this big, like, yay, you've graduated, congratulations for all your hard work. And, like, the irimachi on the last day and the second to last day of performances is, like, ridiculous. When the actresses come in, they're all dressed in white, all their fans are dressed in white. They do an extra kind of like a fan performance. There's usually some funky thing they're doing. Carrying them on their
for the top
shoulders,
stars.
Yeah. And usually the other actresses who are kind of riding on their tailcoats, they get something special too.
Yeah, usually the fans will have like a sort of cheer or some prepared thing that they say to the stars in the morning and in the evening.
And the fans get special fan club wear that they only wear like the last 10 days or so.
Yes. Which
Or
I spent
one day.
like, how much did I spend on like retirement gear? I spent like
I shudder to think.
It was like $400 altogether, I think.
I've been reading my old live journal because I was moving stuff over to Dreamwidth, and so I saw like pictures of me like buying white tops and bottoms and being like, "Hey guys, help me pick my tie-on wear." And not gonna lie, when I came home, you know, my tie-on wear was this little short-sleeved hoodie kind of thing that's white, obviously, and then big pink logo on the back, and I liked wearing it as sort of like a shrug to cover my shoulders and I would like wear a pink tank top and then wear over it all around town in Arizona where no one knows what it is.
But yours was really cute. Mine, like, I love you, Michan, but like it's sitting in my closet and I don't think it'll ever get worn again.
Yeah, I mean, and you hear different things about like whether you're ever supposed to wear the wear again, but like come on, you spend that much money on it. If you're not like wearing it around in Japan, like
you have to put it in the shrine. Yeah. For real. All right. Wait, did other people do their happy things?
No. I'm going to go last because mine will kind of seg into the episode.
Okay, maybe Jen and then me.
Oh, yeah, sure. So my happy thing is, this is actually a couple weeks ago this went up, I think. Losing track of time here. But Masaki posted on her website a poster for her, or flyer, whatever you want to call it, for the new CD that she's releasing, which is a bunch of, like, original songs. And I don't even know why I'm so, like, in love with this poster because it's ridiculous. She's wearing, like, denim with fringe and, like, metal studs. My hair is all teased up. It is so
I think I've seen it, but I'm going to Google it again.
It's awesome.
I am going to totally put a link in the podcast spawn notes because it's hilarious. And that, like, every time I go back and look at it, it makes me happy again. So
Yay.
That's wonderful.
My happy thing is kind of just rekindling my fandom spirit a little bit. Obviously doing this, like I was saying, looking at my journal, kind of connecting to fans on Twitter. And also a person who runs a restaurant in Takarazuka City found me on Instagram and friending online. And it was so random and it just happened like a week ago. And I was like, okay, that's fun and cool to people still, the bonds that you forge in fandom, people remember you, you know, and some of that is kind of, I can still rekindle that and still connect with people, and it's cool.
That is so fun. I've got to say, this shows, like, how much fandom has changed and how much Takarazuka has changed because, like, they've got this official English website now and they have their English ticket thing now online, and
Oh, I don't think I visited that page.
yeah, they're
It's a
selling
little nicer than it
tickets
used
in
to be.
English now. But that just reminds me, I remember the one time, Julie, I think you emailed me or something,
Okay.
and we were chatting, and you were like, yeah, somebody in the theater,
Yeah.
like one of the theater guys,
Came
ran
up
to me
to
and
me.
asked me if I could, like, translate their seat thing into English.
It was something about, like the seating procedures and, like, how to be a good audience member, you know, the kinds of things that you would say in a Western theater, like no eating would be a thing. Actually, that's not a thing in the Takarazuka theater. But yeah, it was
Right.
it was like guidelines of, like, rules of being inside the theater, and it was so bonkers to me, so bonkers. But they offered me compensation of, like, a ticket to a show if I would just check their English and make sure that it was, like, presentable, official sounding English and not, like, garbled crap.
And that's just so crazy to me, because, I mean...
I think I saw Yukigumi Mizuira Roger Rock On, maybe. I think that's the ticket that they gave me in compensation, or maybe not. That was
that's so cool.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
It's changed so much, even just like in the last year and a half,
I'm
I
sure.
feel like, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, now they also have that announcement in the Grand Theater about how, like, the second act is starting or something like that, and it's in English.
No way!
Carly, do you know what I'm talking about?
I feel like I've heard that for some shows, but not all
Really?
of them. Yeah, like
I've definitely heard it before.
Now that you mention it, I never really thought of it before, but this trip, when I saw Ace Motion, they announced the second act in English, like you just said, and I think when I saw Hanagumi, they didn't. So,
weird.
I don't know.
It's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So, Becca, happy things.
Yeah, so my happy thing is just, and this segs into our current episode, is hearing about the various Soragumi or Soragumi-related OG who went to see Chiggy's last show. So one of them was Hasumi Yuya, who was I'll talk about her later, I think, but career-long Soragumi member, and she and Chigi did Shinkos together. And then also, this really hits me in the feels. So Tani, Yamato Yuga, Tomu, and Michan all came to see the show on the same day. I don't know if they sat together, but for me, that's like the heart of my Soragumi fan era, was the three of them together. So the idea of them being there and, to see how far Chiki's come, and then also Hosho Dai, who is originally from Soragumi, it gave me a lot of feels. And Tomu put a link on her blog, so I'll find that link.
Very cool. Yeah, Carly, you were just telling me Masaki was there for Taiwan,
Yeah,
too.
she was there today, I think, just to watch. Actually, the number of people who have come to see the show, the number of OGs who have come to see the show is absolutely staggering. Like, I feel like I see a new one or 12 on Instagram every single day. It's really nice to see the support.
All right. So, let's do some Cosmos Troupe. Let's see. What did we say?
Yes.
Oh yeah, Julie. Julie
History.
was going to do the
Yes.
history for us. Tell us a little bit about it. It's interesting because it started much later than all the other
Yes.
troupes, right?
So, I mean, in the long memory of the fandom, it's been actually a relatively short period of time that Soragumi has been around. In 1997, they were, I suppose, planning to make this new troupe. I don't know exactly when the announcement was, but that's only 20 years ago. So yeah, pretty short. The first thing actually that I don't know if just many or all of the Soragumi members did was they actually went on an international tour in Hong Kong. Typical of the tours, it was like a Japanese show half and then a Western review half. Mugen Hoju Show, and this is Takarazuka. And then the first show that they did in the Grand Theater was Excalibur and Citrus Breeze. It was also the Hatsubutai for the 84th class. Thank you to the wiki. And the first top stars were Shizuki Asato and Hanafusa Mari. And of course, you can't just form a new troupe out of nothing. They were pulling a bunch of people from other troupes to form the fifth troupe. So Hanafusa Mari had already been a top star of Yukigumi and was being pulled as the top star of the newly formed troupe of Soragumi. So they were the tops, while Yoka was the Nibante. And then when they did Elizabeth later that year, it's kind of funny because Elizabeth is like really strongly rooted in my mind. It wasn't the first Grand Theater show for Soragumi, it was the second, but it was like one of the first Soragumi things I ever saw on DVD. I had just seen pictures of Zunko's death, and I was like, that's the one I want to watch. And what's funny is you watch the Grand Theater performance, and there's like Asami Hikaru as Rudolph, and lots of people are in that Grand Theater performance. And then when they moved over to Tokyo Theater, a bunch of troupe switches had already happened, where like Judy Sakiho was playing Rudolph in the Tokyo performance, and like even though they had just formed the troupe, they switched a bunch of people out like within a year, and they were like, nope, sorry, this isn't working, or like, we have other plans for you.
There was a ton of movement in that first couple of years.
Yeah, we have plans for you, and they moved out her and they put in Judy-san, and yeah, so that was kind of the rocky start for Soragumi. But then in 2000 was Zunko's retirement. So Shizuki Asato, the top star, retired, but Hanafusa Mari stayed on as top musumeyaku. So while Yoka became the top star in 2000, and that's the, my forever love, basically. Like, but I love Zunko as well, actually. I as a singer, as a actor, as a person, whatever, they're great. Both of them are great tops, and but while Yoka and Hanafusa Mari both basically broke records of being very long top stars, while for 6 years and Mari for 12 years. Unbelievable.
For anyone who's a newer fan, you just have to imagine that WoW and Ohana, they were basically the Chie Nene of their day.
They were, because Chie Nene almost beat them.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, it's a matter of months. We list the stats on the wiki in months. But yeah, they really were the Chie Nene of their day. And unfortunately, of course, what that means is there's a lot of sort of turmoil, or whatever you want to call it, people being promoted and the people being switched out to other troops and this and that underneath them. And so there's a lot of kind of, how does anyone move up if the top stars don't leave? But
right.
So that means that like Tono Asuka spent some time in Soragumi, Ayano Kanami spent some time in Soragumi, Mizunatsuki,
Yamato Yuka. Oh wait, never mind. But she stayed in.
Well, she transferred in and stayed in. But gosh, I'm sure I'm forgetting another big one. But like when WoW was top, Mizunatsuki was her first big Nibante, and it's funny to like remember that, and also it's forgotten, I think, by a lot of people that actually Mizu's like rise to that prominent Nibante space was under Soragumi.
And this was all during the time when they were having Shinsenka, the new Senka.
Oh yeah,
so
there was.
Moving.
Yeah.
I was gonna jump into that next. Shinsenka was like Judy Sakiho and Kozuki Wataru, and man, I was looking at some things on the performance list for the wiki the other day, like Iori Naoka. Like, I don't want to say who even remembers her, but like,
Ouch.
I know, it's so bad. There was another one, Tsubaki Hiroka or something. She did like one bow lead with Soragumi, and yeah. Oh wait, Fuzuki Mio also randomly spent some time in Soragumi. lots of people were being switched in and out in the early 2000s, and it was pretty confusing. 2002, Castel Mirage was another like huge retirement switching kind of time for Soragumi, and then Tsubaki Hiroka and Fuzuki Mio did a bow lead together, which I don't associate them with Soragumi at all. It's so bizarre. But yeah, so it would have been in 2003 that Yamato Yuga transferred into the troupe, and she and Mizu did spend some time as like, Waoyoka as the top, Mizu as the second, and Tani as the Sambante, where they were, I think that was a pretty solid, clear pattern of who was where in the troupe at that time. But one of the big things that was pioneered in Soragumi would have been the first performance of Phantom in 2004, which has, become one of those beloved shows that's been revived twice, both by Hanagumi.
Oh yeah.
But totally wouldn't be surprised if they revived it again, because people seem to really like that one.
I predict next year.
So then there was that sort of Nibante switch thing that they did for the 90th anniversary in 2004. Phantom was in 2004, and Aranke, just for Phantom, visited Soragumi and played that Nibante role of Philippe. So yeah, it's really fun to go back. Hopefully people who listen to this podcast, if you haven't visited some of the older material, it's funny to think about as old. I feel old. But if you haven't, it's such an interesting time for really all the troops to see all this movement. And like I said, not just people switching in from other troops, but switching in and then switching out again. So yeah, but then that Nibante switch also kind of resulted, or was a stepping stone to Mizunatsuki leaving the troupe and Yamato Yuga becoming the clear Nibante for Soragumi, and Ayano Kanami switched out, and oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget her stage name.
Shijo Rui.
Shijo Rui, thank you. Shijo Rui switched in 2005. So Kiss to the Flames, Neo Voyage in late 2005 would have been the clear, it's Waoyoka and Hanafuse Mari at the top. Yamato Yuga and Shijo Rui are the Nibantes, or Otogyaku and Musumeyaku Nibantes. Hopefully this isn't getting super long-winded, guys. Hopefully this is what you wanted from me.
No, it's a good breakdown.
Okay, yeah, and then so pretty soon after that, Waoyoka did her. I assume she had announced her retirement at that by this time, late 2005. She did a concert. She had her accident where she fell from a wire and broke her hip. Or Jen, or Becca, do you guys remember like more details from that?
Well, that she hurt her hip. Mm-hmm. I think she actually finished the song. The rest of the performance was canceled. It was W Wing.
Yeah, it was like a concert style. Bow thing.
And then thankfully she was able to retire. But if you watch Never Say Goodbye,
she doesn't
Wild
dance
had really
a lot.
Yeah, very little.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And I remember I was looking back at my journal, and I didn't know any of this backstory at the time. But other than having watched handful of Soragumi DVDs before going to say Never Say Goodbye live, I didn't really know. I think I didn't even know that Wao and Hana were retiring until after I saw Never Say, which is crazy to think about, that I got like a biseki within a couple weeks of me falling headfirst into fandom. And but I was rereading my journal and kind of noting that I felt like, oh, there wasn't like enough dancing with Wao and Hana in the finale, because I didn't know all of this. But I mean, it's crazy because Wao did that gun dance that they all did towards the end of Never Say Goodbye. It's not like she didn't dance, period. They did this really intense, rebels.
Yeah, like a solo too.
Yeah,
and
it was a big solo dance too. So yeah, it's not that she did not dance, but yeah.
But
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Jen and Carly. Carly, did you see WoW in Chicago?
Yes.
Ooh.
I feel like some of the choreography was a little modified for her, so I think she does fine, but I feel like there's some things that she still can't totally do.
Well, she also had a broken rib during Chicago, so I guess she's big on performing broken.
Sheesh. It's funny. I saw her in Chicago, but Japan Chicago performance, not the one that was in States last year. And I don't remember at all being like, I wonder if she's still injured from something.
Okay. Yeah.
So it must have been the rib then.
Yeah,
I remember thinking that and then hearing that afterwards and going, oh my god, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also because her counterparts were Mizu and Wataru, who haven't aged at all somehow. So it's
and they're amazing dancers.
Yeah, both known for dancing, both doing 6 cartwheels when they asked for 2, etc. So it's not really a fair comparison. But yeah, I noticed that and then found out that she had broken something. So.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that's it, rather than that she has this 10-year-old injury that's still bothering her.
Yeah, when you said that, that sort of made me get worried for a second too. So back to history. It was big upset probably in fandom. I was, like I said, barely just getting into fandom in 2006, but completely, the tops were being wiped out. A lot of long-standing Soragumi members were leaving with them in Never Say Goodbye, and they were just bringing on in, I've heard some people call them parachute tops. Two tops. Well, that's not true though. Shijo Rui was already in the troupe. But Takashi Roke was just completely brought in from Yukigumi, and I'm sure it was extremely upsetting for Yukigumi too, to steal her to be the new top star of Soragumi. And even more upsetting than that, they were just interim tops. Like, they were tops for like 6 months. They did one non-Grand Theater show and one Grand Theater show and a concert, and that was like it.
All right, I'm gonna butt in here because Becca, isn't this like your first show that you saw live?
It was. So I lived in Japan from 2006 to 2008. I lived outside the Tokyo area in Saitama. And, someone who I knew just got me tickets to, it was Kashige's last show, and it must have been maybe 2 weeks before she retired, so I had no idea that she was leaving, and I looked online, and my thought was, wait, she's leaving? It was, I kind of felt bad for Kashige. Like, the review in that, the classic I Love Chopin is really fun, but really honestly, funny. That too. But the other half, I'm kind of amazed I got into Takarazuka based on the first half of it, because it's not a horrible show, it's not...
But it's so goofy. Like, Ryomadem is a romp, it's not meant to be a serious discussion of the life of Ryoma Sakamoto. It's meant to be this, crazy, the English title was Sketches from the Life of Sakamoto Ryoma, and that really is true because it was just like these random scenes of important historical things that happened in his life, and there was just a lot of humor because Kashi, you could not put her in anything without there being humor. Like, I don't know if she ever did anything serious. I know she did in Yukigumi, but I have not seen any serious stuff that she's...
I guess Japanese history has never been a very strong subject for me, so I just
must have been
didn't know it was going on. But that being said, I remember writing Michan a letter many, many years later saying, you were in the first Takarazuka performance I ever saw, and I don't have a lot of memories except for that you showed up in drag.
So I should have mentioned that in addition to Kashige being brought in, Tomu and Michan were brought in at this time.
Yay!
So Ranju Tomu and Hokusho Kairi, both of who went on to become tops of other troupes, did quite a stint, and Becca and I's most beloved era of Soragumi was happening. Well, I can't say most beloved because I do love Takahana era so much, but Becca and I lived basically 2006.
Yeah, no, that for me, that was the era.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I liked Yuhi era more than you did, but regardless, that was my Soragumi.
Sure, but there's a reason for that. And there are things that happened in Yuhi era. It's weird that I can't say era correctly as I'm trying to switch back and forth between Japanese and English. There are obviously things that happen in Yuhi era that I absolutely cannot be mad at. But so that would have been straight into Aru, or A/L, about Arsène Lupin. Yeah, weird, right? Because then they did another show about Arsène Lupin.
The first one is so much better. But, like the no offense, Jen, like the Tsukigumi one is kind of known for being bad, but like the Tani era one is like goofy and stupid and perfect.
Ridiculous. The only thing that made me mad is that in the end they don't get together. I was like, why would you have this funny romp through this, whatever. It's a very romantic comedy kind of feeling show, and then why would they not get together at the end? Anyway, that's a small point / spoiler. But yeah, that would have been the rise of Yamato Yuga as top, and then they brought in Hizuki Hana from Hoshigumi to be her top partner, and it was a very fun time. Ranju Tomu then became her Nibante, and so many fun shows. I can't go without mentioning Hizuki Hana broke her ankle right before this show that they did with Todoroki Yu, Reime no Kaze. It was like 3 days before the opening or something. It was so crazy.
And if you look at any of the programs for Reime no Kaze, it still has Hizuki Hana listed. Yeah, and her picture for everything, because it was just that.
It was so last minute.
Sudden.
And they had to shift everybody who had been, what you might call their understudy, to just shift into those roles. And Miwa Asahi ostensibly would have been the Nibante for Soragumi at the time, but Hizuki Hana's understudy, so to speak, would have been someone else. So that was Kazune Mio, and Kazune Mio switched in to play the lead opposite Todoroki Yu.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Right.
And she did fantastically. My love, Hanakage Arisu did the Shinko version of that, which was a really great experience for her as well. But then Miwa Asahi did the sort of show half, Musumeyaku lead. So Hizuki Hana was out. Kazune Mio did the top filled in for the top Musumeyaku in the play half, and Miwa Asahi in the show half. And then in the summer, they were supposed to be doing Singing in the Rain, which is a huge, tap dance heavy show. And they determined that Ume-chan's ankle still wasn't good enough, or they didn't want to risk it or whatever. So turns out that, again, my girl, Hanakage Arisu, was chosen to... It was like a dream, because... she literally had always listed in Otome, Singing in the Rain, as, Kathy from Singing in the Rain, as the play she wanted to do, her dream role. And she got into Takarazuka the same way I got into musicals, from seeing Gene Kelly in Singing in the Rain, original, classic movie. So it was just this crazy confluence of events that meant that she actually got to play her dream role. As you might imagine, it was a lot of work, and so at the end of it, maybe it wasn't her favorite role anymore. But that it was a dream time for us Soragumi fans, because me and Becca and Teffy and a bunch of other people all met up in Japan at that time in summer of 2008, and got to run around fangirling, and it was...
And Julie, if you want to feel really, really old,
yes,
I was thinking about this recently.
It was 10 years ago?
That was 10 years ago.
Yes, I was thinking about that, because I was, like I said, rereading my old journal. So that meant that the triumphant return of Hizuki Hana was in Paradise Prince Dancing for You in late 2008. And it was I'm like gonna cry just thinking about it. It was 10 years ago and I'm gonna cry about it. Because what happens is like they set up the whole story of like Tani Yamato Yuga as this like aspiring artist and travels across the country from New York to California to work in like an animation studio. And like Hizuki Hana, the top Musumiaka, has not appeared yet, right? And they're all like setting up the plot, and Tani has to like start working at the animation studio. And then like everyone is like, oh, it's 11 o'clock. Our princess is going to arrive. And like the doors at the back of the theater, or the back of the stage rather, open, and she appears, and then there's like burst of light or whatever, and they all turn and they look at her and they're like, oh, then they're fainting and they're like, our princess. And I'm like seriously gonna cry thinking about it, because it really was like such a nice way to write in like, welcome back, Ume-chan, you know, and they all just look at her and they sing this like little number about how much they love her and stuff, and it's so sweet. And Paradise Prince was the best show.
It's a really cute and sweet show.
It has so much heart, and it's just fun, and it has goofy cartoon villains, and if you don't like it, you can fight me, you're wrong.
And also, you know, it's for anyone who's newer, it's good to go back and look, because a lot of future top stars are in it.
Oh yeah.
Like Michan and Tomu, and then Chigi was in it. I know she's not a top star, but Kacha.
Sure, that was like right before she left. Chigi.
Yeah.
Chigi was out by
Chigi
the time
left
of the next show. Yeah. Chigi left at that time. So Sagiri Seina, that was her last... No, it wasn't her last Soragumi show, because she was in the Bedobara after that.
Yeah.
But she wasn't in the next Grand Theater show. By that time, she had transferred over. Little waving flags and saying yay for Chigi, because she did it. She grew up in Soragumi, and then she moved on, and she became a top star. I'm very happy for her. But yeah, so that would have been Paradise Prince, and then Dancing for You was like super dance heavy, and so I guess Ume-chan was definitely over her leg injury by that time. Moving on to 2009 would have been another kind of big milestone for Soragumi, because they did Phoenix Wright.
Yes!
Gyakuten Saibam with Ranju Tomu in the lead, and that just like, oh my gosh, there was so much fan fervor, obviously, inside the Takarazuka fandom, and then outside the Takarazuka fandom of these game fans and anime fans who were like, oh my gosh, Takarazuka's doing this thing. And so there was a lot of kind of crossover of fans from different things, and it was impossible to get tickets and all this stuff. And I mean, it was like, I think, Becca, you were out of Japan by the time, right?
Yeah, I wasn't living in Japan at that time, but I think I watched it on DVD and everything.
Okay, sure.
And also, I think I'm one of, like, I'm sure this happened the other way around for the most part, but I actually became a Phoenix Wright fan after watching the Takarazuka adaptation. Like, I went back and really got into playing the video games.
For me, it was like I tangentially knew of the game because, like, friends of mine had played the video game. But what I was going to say was, Phoenix Wright, I remember sitting in the theater, and they passed out, like, little, like, survey things, and they're like, did you like the show? Would you come back if we did a second one of these? Like, usually don't have, like, surveys sitting on your seats. But
oh my god, what a biased sample, because
I know, right?
Tickets, I'm sure most of them were
Tomu
fans.
Tomu Club. Yeah, because Tegan was in her club, so I got tickets through Tomu Club to go to Phoenix Wright. So yeah, even though some of them maybe been video game fans, I think a lot of them were just, in-house Takarazuka fans, so to speak. But yeah, that was a big kind of like, obviously they have done a lot of things in the past 10 years to make adaptations to pull in like new fans of other things. Like, they've done a lot of adaptations of TV dramas and other like anime or video game things, which Soragumi did at least one of those too, because they did Galactic Heroes thing in Kaname era. But without skipping ahead too much, Yamato Yuga and Hizuki Hana retired in 2009, the next Grand Theater show, and Nagina Rumi was briefly taken away from us to be Elizabeth in the 2009 Elizabeth with Sena Jun.
And at the time, and actually I still think that's one of the weirdest transfer moves I've heard of, but it
wasn't a transfer.
Huge to do. Not transfer,
they borrowed
but
her,
just
and
weirdest
then,
casting decisions.
It was, and it was upsetting to a lot
and
of
people
fans.
were really in an uproar about it.
Yeah, they were very hostile, and I was like, it was hurtful because I was like, I just want to protect my baby. But yeah, it's such a weird choice. Like, I mean, Koike Sensei said some blah blah thing about like I just wanted to pick the woman who was right for the role or whatever, and they must have auditioned lots of people, but it was a weird choice. So there was kind of, again, a lot of movement in Soragumi where I'm trying to think if anyone else was transferred into the troupe. Not yet, I don't think, or not any big transfers.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't happen for another year or two.
Yeah, so Tani and Umechan retired, and again, parachute tops. Ozora Yuhi and Nonothumika were brought in. They had both been in Hanagumi, even though Yuhi obviously sort of had her roots in Tsukigumi. But they came in to do Oyama Kaden, and then
Casablanca.
Not forgetting that Phoenix Wright 2 also happened in the summer of 2009. So obviously Gyakuten Saiban was so popular that they immediately turned around and did a second one. Sadly, Nanao Hikaru had decided to retire already. I think she had already decided to retire by the time they did Phoenix 1. So she retired with Tani in the previous show, Baraame, and so the second Phoenix Wright, they had to have Yumi Hiro be Edgeworth.
And if I can interject for a second just about Ozora Yuhi, you have to understand, she was like the equivalent of someone like Mia Rurika or back in the day Hokusho Kairi, where she was a big like will she or won't she.
I'm trying to think of another like comparable example.
Well, there are like Anon K also made top a little bit later.
But I'm trying
than
to think
some.
of like a more recent example. I've kind of followed,
well,
like,
Mia Rurika is the current one.
Really, is she?
Maybe so.
So, yeah, So-san, too. It was very, like, not certain whether So was going to make top or not.
And I think it was very last minute.
In terms of Ken, I think Yuhi holds the record for, like, the longest amount of time it took to become top. Like, she beat Michan by, like, 2 months or something like that.
Nice. But, yeah, so that would have been Tani retired. Tomu stayed on as second. Yuhi became top, so then the sort of structure was Yuhi as top, Tomu as second, and Michan as Nibante, which was the same as what it had been under Tani. So it was like there was no movement. Like Tomu didn't just move up and become top star; they brought in Yuhi. So then, but Casablanca was, I think kind of a big deal. Another adaptation, obviously, of a classic movie. And
that was my first ever, like, so before I'd been living in Japan, but that was my first time I ever went to Japan specifically to see a show. I did it, I was working in AmeriCorps at the time, so I had no money, so I did it completely on my, like, jet pension refund, and,
nice.
I had a really good time. I think I spent most of it crashing at Julie's apartment.
Probably. A lot of people crashed at my apartment. Again, rereading my journal, a lot of people, but it was fun. So that, next year was when my favorite star retired. Hanakage Arisu left in Trafalgar, and I left Japan. Tomu's concert, Rising, was like the last Soragumi thing that I saw before I left, and I was like, man, she's ready, she's rising. She's ready to take off and take any top seat right now, So, of course, it wasn't surprising that soon she was announced as leaving and becoming top of Hanagumi, but she was still in For Whom the Bell Tolls, right?
Yeah, that was her last show before leaving. Mm-hmm. Well, she did a dinner show, but yeah, that was her last Grand Theater show.
So yeah, that would have been from 2010 to 2011. That spanned into 2011. So, and then Kaname would have been transferred in pretty soon, right? Yeah. Utsukushi Shogai, I think. She was in the troupe by that time.
It was the show after, right, it was the next one she was transferred in, and as a Michan fan, that was nothing against Kaname as an actress or personally, but it was pretty upsetting because I think everyone kind of accepted, oh, okay, Yuhi's coming in, everything's staying exactly the same, but that was like the first sign that Michan was not moving up in current Soragumi, and it was, the fans were upset.
When did she officially become Senka?
So about a year later, so Michan hung on for the rest of Yuhi era, and then that December of 2011, when there was a ton of movement, and so Michan was the kind of first of the, what I call it, Shin Senka,
Shin Senka, Shin Senka 2.
Yeah, this modern thing where they were moving people into Senka who were still had good potential, but they just had kind of outgrown where they were in current troops.
That's right. That would have been like when they transferred out a lot of the 88s and Kai-chan. Did Kai-chan move at that time, or was it later?
No, it wasn't. She didn't leave until a few years later.
But Kacha did leave.
Yeah, actually, that was a really big shake-up in Soragumi. Toki Irisu moved to Hoshigumi.
That's right.
Hosho Dai moved to Yukigumi. Harukaze Misato moved to Hanagumi, and then about a year later, Nagina Rumi moved to Tsukigumi. But
so a lot of what you might have considered, like the rising stars of Soragumi. Again, there had been like a lot of boiling underneath, all of these good talent, but they weren't getting their chances to shine. So then a bunch of them got transferred out to other troops.
And I think for, I guess now we're getting into Kaname era a little bit. In some ways, I think it was easier for her to, come in and have, people who were going to create a new troop under her, and not people who were holding on to the troops of however many years ago.
Sure. So that would have been... let me just say really fast, since you were talking about moving into Kaname era. 2012 would have been Yuhi's last show. Yuhi and Sumika both retired in Brilliant Days Climax, and then Kaname had already been in the troupe, and then they brought in Misaki Rion to be her top musumeyaku. So then 2012 would have been the big anime adaptation, Legend of Galactic Heroes, which was kind of epic.
Or something.
But I think for both, so Carly, this is where you're going to have to start jumping in, because I think for Julie and I both, at that point I was still very devoutly following Michan, but I think as the core of the troupe...
And Michan was out, and Ozuki Toma also got brought in to be semi-nibante.
Well, and so did Asaka Manato came from Hanagumi at the same time, and obviously ended up becoming top. But yeah, Soragumi is interesting because, all of our other history segments have been the years before, and there's really that much record of anything, all of the super old pre-Top Star System stars of the other troops.
Oh, but this is the one where we have literally everything that happened in Soragumi.
Yeah. So I think I don't know. I don't know if I want to repeat myself. So maybe should we start talking about some top stars?
Actually, really quickly, I just want to give one story before we just about Soragumi and its changes. Julie, you were with me for this, but I remember we went to a Shinjin Koen talk for Casablanca, and it was with Nagina Rumi and Fujisaki Eri.
Yeah.
And, at that time, within the last few years, they had seen a lot of top star retirements. And so the talk host asked them, do you feel like Soragumi has really changed, and you've seen a lot of different tops in the last couple of years? And Kacha's response was, no, not really. And then she went into something along the lines of, in Soragumi, we really like food. Do you remember this, Julie?
No, I don't. Please tell the story.
Oh, okay, yeah. And then she, went on to say about how Soragumi ate more food in, the backstage cafeteria than, the rest of the troops combined or something like that. It was really cute.
So, I'm so sorry that I took so much time on the history lesson.
Oh, no, it's totally fine.
We did have Kaname and Million as tops until
2013?
15. 14?
15.
Yeah, 15.
2015. So 2015, Kaname retired, but Midion stayed on as top Musumeyaku. So we had Ma-kun and Midion as tops, and they revived some shows. They did a Song for Kingdoms, Melancholic. They brought back Citrus Breeze, which was the first Soragumi review show. They brought back Elizabeth. Valencia no Hana, which was Tani's first show as top. So interestingly, a lot of revivals. Midion retired separately from Ma-kun. So Misaki Rion retired in early 2017, and then Ma-kun, like, she's not gone yet, is she?
No, her
She's
November.
not quite.
Next
Yeah,
show?
into fall 2017, and then she'll be retiring in November, and then but we do have our new tops already announced, so that will be I'm forgetting her stage name again. Shoot.
Makaze Suzuho and Hoshikaze Madoka.
Makaze Suzuho, who again had already been transferred in previously. She'd been sort of working as Ma-kun's Nibante for a while, and then we will have. They've both been transferred in already.
Actually, Madoka was born in Soragumi. She is going to be, she's the Musumeyaku, so...
That's funny. I thought she was a transfer.
No, she was born in Soragumi, so she's going to be the first Soragumi
born in
top ever.
Born in Soragumi top of any kind.
Yep.
Otoko
In Soragumi.
Well, yeah, in Soragumi, a few have gone to other troops.
No, that's what I mean.
was the first.
That's what I mean. Like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
obviously, I had a huge bee in my bonnet about it at the time, but when you look at it now, hardly anybody rises to the top of their own troop. It's a little bit unheard of.
Right. I feel like, so yes, you're right, like, not many people rise to the top of their own troop, but there was a while when everyone was griping that Soragumi was kind of like a microwave, that people would be brought in for a few years, they would, they would get, a lot of following, and then they would move, so people like Tomu and Michan,
like I said, Tomu and Michan put down their very hard work, becoming the stars that they, became. In Soragumi, I would say, and like I was saying before about like Mizu and lots of other people, really solidified who they were as actors in Soragumi. So yeah, I'm just looking at Hoshikaze Madoka again because I'm so surprised that I thought for certain that she was one of those Musumeyaku who spent like 1 to 2 years in some troupe and they were like, we have big plans for you, and they moved her to another troupe. No, she was in Soragumi the whole time.
Well, before we get into stars, to talk about characteristics of troops a little bit, so I think Soragumi is interesting because in a lot of ways, we've talked in other ones about how Hanagumi is the traditional troupe and Yukigumi is the Nihon mono troupe, but Soragumi, I think it's often characterized as the fresh or the experimental troupe because it just has less history.
What did you say, Jen?
The tall
troop as well, absolutely.
That's really true.
That's funny because, that this fresh energy, new, exciting, experimental, that was definitely like words that have been used a lot in the past and maybe currently as like ways to express what Soragumi is and what Soragumi is doing. And they did some really interesting shows like Boxman and Shangri-La and stuff that, you might say were a little more artsy or a little experimental in some way or other. So, yeah.
And then it was the first troupe, I believe, that brought in a foreign composer to do their songs, which was Frank Wildhorn, who is then married while Yoka.
Right. Crazy things happened. And,
right.
Yeah, they brought in a foreign element. I mean, because they've done some things now where, like, maybe a foreign... what do you call it, choreographer and stuff. They've had people come in from other places, right? But
Oh, they got the guy who did the French Romeo and Juliet to do Napoleon, so it's happened a little bit since.
But yeah, it was pretty big media blitz or whatever at the time for Never Say Goodbye that they were bringing in Frank Wildhorn to compose music for, this very special last show for Walyoka. And then, of course, they brought Frank Wildhorn's stuff back because they did Scarlet Pimpernel. And so they flew him back in, and And, you know, him and Waoyoka must have continued their friendship and eventually got married.
I think I saw some interview with WoW somewhere where she basically, like, she decided that Frank Wildhorn was the right guy because her dog, like, instantly invested.
That's so cute. And now she posts cool stuff from New York on her Instagram.
All right, I am going to get us going because
Yes,
I know you've got a little extra time, Becca, but I still want to make sure we have enough time to. So I'm going to start with you, Becca.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about, and you can start with your top stars or you can start with your non-top stars. Tell us about the 4 ladies you have chosen.
Okay. Well, so one is Hizuki Hana, who was top star with Yamato Yuga from 2007 until 2009. She originally started in Star Troop and then got transferred over to be Tani's partner. And she's often kind of referred to as a tomboy musumeyaku, and I think that suits her well. I say this loving her, but can't really sing, but had a ton of spirit, really good dancer. So she did a lot of kind of tomboyish, spunky roles that I really enjoyed. She's also known for being just a really big Takarazuka fan, in addition to, you know, being a Takarajian herself. Like I think she was known at the time for, like, just knowing facts about other Seito and other troops from just reading Otome a lot. Like, Julie, didn't she get some, like, random underclassmen from another troop to draw her Eitobun pictures in Kageki or something like that?
That sounds really familiar.
Yeah, and if you can ever find it, there's a great old episode of Brilliant Dreams Personal, which is the, you know, kind of off-stage thing they do with the actresses. And for hers, she spent, like, half of it going to Salon de Takarazuka.
Yes, she visited all of, like, the big Takarazuka City. Like, oh, I love all these things. All my memories are here.
Yeah. So there's a great thing. She does, like, a whole photo shoot as Rhett Butler. And I remember she talks about, like, and she put on the mustache and everything. And she's like, oh, it's Mr. Hige. Or, and then she, for the second part of it, she, like, worked as a QR employee for a day. Or, excuse me, Kacharev. So she great. Just, she has a lot of fan spirit. And then, I think for a number of years, also did a column in Kageki. I think she might have been one of the announcers for, the most recent sports day. I might be wrong.
I feel like that's right.
But so someone who I really enjoy on stage, her displaying these kind of spunky, tomboyish musumeyaku roles that I love, but then also off stage is just, like, really funny and a real Takarazuka nerd.
She comes back and does a lot of stuff, right, as an OG.
Yeah. And I feel like she's still on a fairly regular basis does stuff, and I don't remember if she's married or has kids. I don't think so, but I might be wrong. So that's Ume-chan, and I love her. For a top otakoyaku, to be honest, like, it was a little hard to pick this one because I wanted to let Jen have Yuhi. So I'll go with Tani. I've talked about Tani before, I think in some other ones, where, oh god, I'm gonna get myself in trouble for this. It's less that I kind of admire her on her skill and more that I just find her very endearing in a Tani sort of way.
It is. It's like the kitten who fell off the table and you're like, oh, sweetie.
But, you know, she certainly, you know, what she did not have in vocal ability, she made up in just a lot of enthusiasm. And I think she was a good top star for me to start with as I was really getting into Cosmos Troupe. And then I crack up these days when, like, I've seen her do, like, lingerie photo shoots and things like that. Which
right
just seems...
after she retired. It was ridiculous.
It was.
She had those assets.
She had those assets. She was just hiding them the whole time. And as soon as she retired, she was like, here I am.
I probably should have mentioned this before you started talking about Tani, but her staff totally follows us on Twitter.
Oh, good. That's fantastic. Oh.
Great. Well, now I feel dumb. I really enjoyed her in Chicago when it came to New York last year. Like, I just thought she was perfect for the role of Roxy.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, when you were talking about her singing, I feel like Tanya is one of the actresses who spent a lot of time in Tsukigumi before she
That's right.
Was moved. And as a young otokoyaku, I think she had some trouble. Like, her voice doesn't fit the otokoyaku range very well. Like, it's a tough thing to do, to force your voice into that range.
Yeah.
But I feel like as she became top star, like, obviously everyone, when they become top star, they have matured a lot and they've learned a lot. And then when we went and saw her in Chicago, I was like, this is Tani? Like, her singing voice was fine.
Yeah.
Like, it was not what
agree.
I was expecting at all. Yeah. And I think it's being able to sing more in your natural range.
Exactly.
I think that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah,
I
agreed.
felt the same way. I think Mizu was the same in Chicago as well. Like, I mean, it wasn't the first time I've seen her in something OG related, but like, yeah, a lot of their voices definitely kind of settle into a much better range than when they were in Takarazuka for people who you consider not great singers at the time.
Yeah.
All right, Becca.
All right. Well, so I would say I don't want to just talk straight. So people talk about your top otokoyaku and musumeyaku picks.
Okay, Carly, you've been really, really quiet. So I'm gonna have you go next. I know we're kind of jumping around chronologically, but I think that's kind of fun.
Jumping around in time. Okay.
Yeah.
I chose Asaka Manato and Misaki Rion for both of mine, and I'm going to kind of talk about them together instead of separately because them becoming a kombi made a really, really huge difference in my love for both of them. Like, I always thought Minion was fine before, but I kind of actively disliked Makun for a really long time until she became top star and was paired with Minion, and their first small theater show before their grand theater debut was Top Hat, and I'm not even sure if I can really describe it eloquently, but there was just something about their chemistry that I just fell in love with, even though, like, this was somebody who I had actively disliked up until this point. It just worked so well for me. They had a very, like, not like a lovey-dovey relationship, but, like, very mutually respectful, and there was just something that was kind of old school about it to me somehow. I can't pinpoint why, but having loved a lot of older top combis, there was just something about them together that felt like nostalgic to me and felt like the Takarazuka that I originally got into or something.
Which makes sense because Top Hat was like a Fred Astaire movie, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
So it was very buying into that classical aesthetic.
Yes. I think that had a lot to do with it. I really love that show. And another thing that's interesting is Mirion, possibly because at that point Makun was her second partner, she got a lot of really strong roles where she's not so much, the musumeyaku, but an equal lead. I think Top Hat really kicked that off because what's her name? Dale is a very strong character. And then their Grand Theater debut was A Song for Kingdoms, and she played Aida, which when Hoshigumi had previously done A Song for Kingdoms, Anan Kei had gotten Aida, so it went to the Nibante in drag, and everyone was kind of wondering, like, are we going to see Makaze Suzuho in drag, or are they going to do the right thing?
It's just like you said, I'm really glad they didn't because it was respecting her position as a seasoned top musumeyaku.
Yeah, absolutely. And she did a great job with that. And she also got Elizabeth. And I guess I'm trying to think through all of their Grand Theater shows together. Shakespeare was more of kind of a normal dynamic, but I mean, Elizabeth is definitely a leading lady. And then their Mirion's Tairan show, which was Chateau de la Reine, that's kind of a weird little show. There's some problems with it.
And it's also a drama adaptation or something?
I think it's a novel.
It's a movie.
Or
okay. Novel and a movie, probably.
No, it's probably a novel and a movie. But her character is kind of like the boss, I guess. Like she's orchestrating. There's this whole ridiculous set of shenanigans going on, and her character is kind of orchestrating the whole thing. So, and it wasn't really focused on their romantic relationship. So again, that was a really interesting dynamic where she had a really mature role, and they really felt equally balanced. And I always loved that about their relationship as a top combi. And now that I've talked about Miriam so much, for Makun specifically, once I warmed up to her, I really started to love the energy that she brought to Soragumi. I mean, not that I had a problem with them before, but I just her Soragumi grabbed my interest. Probably mostly thanks to Hot Eyes, which was the show that went along
lived
with
up to its name
last year. Oh yeah, it super lived up to its name. I saw that live, and it was one of these things where I was like, I'm in Japan anyway. While I'm here, I'm going to see everything because that's what I do. Nice. And I had one ticket to Hot Eyes, and nothing has ever exceeded my expectations as much as Hot Eyes exceeded my expectations.
Yeah. It's always fun to have like a memory of a show like from another troupe that really just like, this was an amazing review, and it kind of supersedes your like whatever troupe loyalties. Not everyone obviously is like that, but I think most of the people on this call have specific troupe loyalties. But it's cool when you go see a different review that was just like, it was so high energy, or it was so this and that, and just you feel pumped and good after seeing it.
Oh yeah, it completely did that. And I mean, my fandom has gotten a lot more expensive in the past year because she completely pulled me into Soragumi.
Nice.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, it's funny because that new youth energy kind of stereotype about Soragumi may have gotten, a little bit stale under Wa and Hana because they were tops for so long. And then Kashi and Tani would have been trying to kind of bring that back of like Wakasa, and they have just very beaming, youthful kind of faces. Yeah. I'm not sure that Kaname was like, maybe more like WoW in her aesthetic.
And I would say that both Yuhi and Kaname just both had a more mature energy.
Well, Yuhi, obviously. And a very different energy. But then Makun would have been like a bringing it back to Wakasa and just her big goofy face. Yeah,
and I think also, like, 20 years is really like a really short time.
Super short.
It's a long time, but it's also a short time. And I think for the first time, Soragumi really has like a star-tracked lineup. I mean, they're stacked. They're so stacked. I think the last set of transfers did not fix any of their problems, and I'm kind of expecting there to be more soon. But Soragumi is so stacked with young stars who were born in Soragumi, and there's finally a little bit of a sense of stability. I mean, maybe not, because they also just brought in Kiki, and I don't know why, but like
the new Kiki. What's her stage name?
Yeah, Senikato.
Yeah.
So, but there's just a sense of like the foundation of Soragumi right now is Soragumi, if that makes sense. Good. And like that also kind of coincided with Makun becoming top star, and it has a good energy. She also has kind of like that, like J-pop idol kind of energy about her sometimes too. Like I one of the things that I saw this trip was her final concert, which was Ace Motion, and it was. I'm biased because it's like it was crafted to hit all of my personal buttons. Like
nice.
It was full.
That's what a good tie-down concert should do.
It was full of like trashy old J-pop from when I was super into J-pop in high school, but it was also just like I expected it to be all about her because it's her tie-down concert, and it was such a well-balanced troupe show. It was just so much fun, and so many of the younger stars got to shine, and it was great. I really love the energy of this troupe, and I think she has a lot to do with that.
Sweet.
Yeah, I've got two quick comments though before we move on, because like when you were talking about not liking or not appreciating Makun before, that cracks me up because like the first time I saw her was I really loved Juri Sakiho, and she was one of the first, like, hosts of a TV show on Sky Stage when Sky Stage got started. And she'd have, like, regular guests, and, like, she had a random, like, you know, youngsters guests on, and Ma-kun was on, and she must have been, I don't know, Ken 2 or 3. And I was just like, who is this funny-looking girl with these crazy bug eyes? Yeah. But, you know, one of the things about Takarazuka that they really pride themselves on is that they do their own makeup on stage and off stage most of the time, I think, too. And I feel like when I was seeing, like, the stage pictures from her Taidan show and just, like, in general recently, I'm like, her skill level with how she does her makeup has changed so much that now, of course, there's all this focus on her gorgeous eyes, her hot eyes, you know, and, like, she's found the way to, like, accent them so that they're beautiful. Whereas before it was like, oh my god, this girl has eyes. She has eyes.
It's true. I mean, we used to, like, I don't mean this as mean, but, like, bug eyes, or it was a little bit what it was like.
Yeah. And I'm like, we shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but I think in Takarazuka, a lot of it is, like, that first impression, like that tall actress you see in the dance line, or that really cute Musume Yaku doing a little tango over to the side of the stage. And if your first impression isn't positive, it takes a long time to get over that.
Especially if you're a fan from overseas. Like, I became a fan before I ever had a chance to come to Japan. So, like, not only is your first impression important, but all of the impressions you're getting are coming from, like, DVDs and bits of media that you're getting fed. Like, you don't have that opportunity to get close to the stars, really, and learn about their personalities off stage until you're here. So I think you're right. That definitely makes a difference.
Yeah. And what else was I going to say? Oh, when you were talking about Miriam and how suddenly she seemed to have a partnership with Ma-kun, that reminds me, like, I didn't really see any of Kanami's shows as top star until much later. But I remember while they were top stars together, everybody was really, really disappointed with all of the shows that she was getting. And they were like, these are not the shows that she deserves. Like, she's so much more skilled than this. And I didn't really know her at all. But I remember that impression from all the fans on the internet.
Yeah, there was when they did Legend of Galactic Heroes, her role was really, it was not, it didn't feel like they were partners in that show at all.
Isn't
and
she
then
the
they did
sister?
Gone with the Wind. I don't even remember. I saw that show once so long
No,
ago.
it was someone else's
yeah, it's like
sister.
somebody's sister and kind of
It's Tada, maybe?
Yeah, okay.
And then when they did Gone with the Wind, they had Kai-chan and Ma-kun split cast as Scarlet, so Miriam had to be Melanie, and it was just...
what a lame thing to do to Thomas Miyaku.
It was lame. So, I mean, coming off of that was the Aida announcement, which is why everyone was like, what's going to happen?
Oh, that makes me
but
feel
thankfully,
so relieved that, like, it kind of came... there was a happy ending to it, kind of.
Yeah, I think she had a really great, strong run with Ma-kun. I'm really, really happy that she had that opportunity.
Awesome. All right, so I guess I'll go next. For my top stars, I picked Yuhi, Ozora Yuhi, and Nono Sumika. And, well, Yuhi was a no-brainer because Yuhi was my Tsukigumi girl. Like, when I first got into the fandom, like, 2004, 2005, she was one of, like, the Sanbante, Nibante,
2.5 Bante.
And yeah, 2.5 Bante.
Yeah.
She wasn't quite there yet because Asuko wasn't top star yet. But she was like that one that wasn't my favorite, but she was like one of my favorites that I was kind of picking. And so I followed her very, very closely. And it's kind of interesting because she joined in 1992, but she didn't really get her first like Bao Hall lead until 2001. So she would have been like Ken 9 or Ken 10, and it was a double role lead. Like, she didn't get her own solo Bao Hall lead till 2004, which is kind of like crazy. So by that point, everybody's like,
it's not happening.
Yeah, this girl is never gonna be a top star. And then even after that, she didn't really get a lot of like Bao Hall or like side lead roles for a long time. And then they transferred her to Hanagumi, Fire Troop, in 2008. And suddenly she was more of a solid Nibante-ish role, and she had a lot of really fun shows. I really loved the combination that they had going in Flower Troupe at the time. And then I remember I was like in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they were great, like 3. And then I was in the parking lot doing something, and I had my phone set up to get like all the Takarazuka notifications that you could do back then. I don't even know if you could do that anymore. But it came up and they were like, yeah, she's gonna be top star of Soragumi. And I was like, what the hell? Like, Soragumi, like, you have to understand, when you live in Japan, you've got to kind of pick a troupe or two. Otherwise, it's just not money feasible. And like, Tsukigumi was my troupe, and then like Flower Troupe and Star Troupe were kind of my adjacents that I went to whenever I could afford it. And like Yukigumi, I was going because Mizu was another one of my favorites who got transferred over. But like Soragumi was always the troupe that I was like, okay, this is the one I'm not going to go to save money. And I was like, okay, Yuki's going to be the top star. I was like, no! So, yeah, that was, yeah. But we were talking about, like, as we were talking about the history of Soragumi, I'm like, it's such a young troupe, but it's had so many, like, unfortunate things. There's, like, Wow's accident, and Hizuki Hana's accident, and then, like, when the earthquake happened in 2011...
Oh, right, yeah.
I had a ticket to go see Yuhi's Valentino in the Nippon Seinenkan in Tokyo, and the whole run got canceled because the theater was damaged in the earthquake, and I still have that ticket. I'm like so bitter about this because I never got to see Valentino.
Did you ever watch the DVD at least? It seems like it's your kind of show.
Oh, it's good
I have not yet, no. I want to see it eventually, but yeah, so that's just like, I don't know. But, so, Yuhi, yeah, I don't know, for me, I really liked her run in Soragumi as top star. Casablanca is one of my all-time favorite movies, and when I heard that that was going to be, like, her debut, I was just, like, staggered, and I thought they did a really, really nice job adapting.
They did some really interesting things with it.
Same for Whom the Bell Tolls. Yeah, I love that kind of older... aesthetic, like you were talking about with Makun, which I haven't seen any of Makun's shows, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should go back and see some.
Well, I think, so I would say, when you say older aesthetic, I would say Yuhi had a very classic aesthetic, but she definitely, her roles just always felt older, and not in a bad way, it's just she was a more mature top star.
Kind of that world-weary thing, right?
I think I'd
with
go
like
more for
Rick.
that.
Rick is a
Yeah,
world-weary
yeah.
guy, and I think probably For Whom the Bell Tolls is that way as well.
Yeah, I'll be honest, and I say this as someone who likes Yuhi, like, by the end of her run, I was getting a little bit sick of these kind of world-weary characters, because that was, I mean, that was just about every show that she did, was that in some form or another. The other thing about Yuhi is, I think there were, like, 2 different times in which it really looked like she was going to retire, and then
Everyone was always on tenterhooks, like, thinking that this is going to be the last show. Every time we thought it was going to be the last show.
yeah, and she
Yeah, I
lasted a
remember-
good, like, 3 years or so.
Well, she became top star in 2009, and she didn't retire until 2012. Yeah. So she was top star
standard
for a long
run.
time. And
Yeah.
her partner was Nono Sumika, who was, they had done a smaller show together, Ginchan's Love, in Flower Troupe, so I guess they kind of, people liked the chemistry
Or probably
they had
Yuhi
together.
felt like comfortable with her chemistry with her.
Yeah, definitely could be. And Sumika, I kind of was keeping an eye on since like 2007-ish, because a friend of mine who is a big Ayane-chan fan, we went and saw The Black Lizard together, and then my friend went and saw The Shinko, which was Nono Sumika's first Shinko lead. And she was like over the moon talking about how cute Nono Sumika was and how amazing she was. And the Black Lizard part is kind of like, I mean, she's very femme fatale. Like, it's a very strange show. So to be able to pull that off, I was like, okay, so this girl must have something. So I kind of kept an eye on her. And then she got the Ginchan's Love lead in 2008 with Yuhi. And I was like, okay, cool, I can, yeah. And then when it got announced that they were going to be top stars together, I was really excited. And she, I don't know why I have this image of her also as kind of a tomboy top musumeyaku.
For whom the bell tolls.
Well, she had that short haircut in For Whom the Whole... Yeah.
But that's the thing, like, and I remember reading articles from the 1970s when they first did For Whom the Bell Tolls, and the top musumeyaku then actually cut her hair short for the role, which was like, top musumeyaku cut her hair short! Like, oh my god! You know, and so then Sumika decided to do it too, like, not a wig, but to actually cut her hair short.
Kind of not done.
Crazy. So, yeah. So... And I know she was like the image girl for Ikeda.
And Ume-chan had been the image girl before her.
Right, a lot of Soragumi Musumeyaku have.
Oh yeah, because Urara-chan, right? Or
Yep.
did she? No, the bank. Yeah, she did that.
Yep, she has been.
Yeah. And some of their, like, they do a lot of ads, like, on the back of
Kageki.
Kageki. And I did a lot of, like, back in the live journal days, a lot of my icons were Sumika from those ads, because some of them were just so pretty. I love the aesthetic of that. So she's just always been, I really liked Sumika. I thought she was very talented, and it's unfortunate that she, you know, I guess it's something we've talked about before, that when Musumeyaku become top stars so soon and then we lose them so soon. It's always kind of like,
They didn't,
what could they have done if they
their full
stayed
potential,
longer?
which is why I'm so happy about Miryone that she got to have 2 top stars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sumika still seems to act regularly. Like, I know Umbrellas of Cherbourg was a show that Shira Hanayuri originally did in 2009, but I think Sumika did the more recent version.
Sounds familiar.
In
She's been around,
2014,
yeah. I feel like I keep seeing ads for her stuff. She was in a radio drama with Komu a few months ago.
Nice.
Cool.
Did you say a radio drama?
A radio drama.
I didn't know that Japan even did that. Don't be Japan. I love radio dramas.
It was a 5-episode radio drama about Sophie from Elizabeth, but when she was young.
Go figure.
Oh, that's so cool.
So Elizabeth, we'll
Alright.
we'll transition over to me talking about Hana
Yeah.
Takahana, and I'll try really hard to not be long-winded. Is as we've been talking about everything about Soragumi, it's, you know, looking back, it's so crazy. But Hana Fuzamari, you have to talk about her first. She is the queen. She's the queen of Takarazuka. I mean, I don't know how anybody else could have done it. It's funny that, like you were just saying about top Musumeyaku becoming tops really young, but she became top young and stayed and stayed and stayed through 3 tops. It wasn't 4 tops, right? It was just
It was
3?
5 tops,
No, well,
actually.
no, she did.
Shoot,
No,
I
5.
said it so wrong. I'm a bad fan. Somebody else listen for me.
Well, it's kind of unbelievable.
Okay.
So it was Ichiro Maki. Who came after her?
Takane
Takane
Fubuki, Todoroki Yu briefly, and then Zuko,
Right, and then
wow.
Zunko, and then wow, that's right. I like all the ones in Yuki can be like mushed together. But yeah, really briefly, she was Todoroki Yu's girl. That's crazy. Yeah.
No chemistry.
Zero
No chemistry at all.
That's what everyone says. But yeah, so she did Elizabeth with Zunko, but really the chemistry with Waoyoka was where it was at. And you know, when I look back to the first show that I watched, which was their 2001 Berubara, I just laughed that I became a Takarazuka fan, because, like, WoW's makeup was so off kilter. And, like, Berubara is such, like, a show that can be very polarizing for people about whether they like it or not. But, Ohana played the queen. She was, you know, Queen Marie Antoinette. And she was a queen, and queenly in every aspect. And so heartbreaking, you know, kind of that scene that, obviously the story leads up to her being executed at 18, so it was just magnificent, and I was 100% sold on her acting ever since. And I was always so impressed how she could just cry on command. She cried a lot in her roles in a very, you know, beautiful and touching kind of way. But really, after 2001, I feel like there were kind of some meh shows. That when I think about my own fandom, obviously, I really think about Phantom 2004 onward, which I just think that they, even though they had such good chemistry, Takahana maybe really hit their stride and went out big with these shows. like Phantom, and I don't know if other people like or don't like Kiss to the Flames. I have a weird like for it. It's this weird show about like gypsies and like lots of people die, and but it's based on it's based on an opera, like so many other things that they've done. Go.
I was just gonna say, I don't think I've ever seen a script translated for it, but if you can find Boxman, I forget what year it is.
It was right before really...
It's 2004. I love Boxman.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good show. Like, I think it won some like Japanese theater award for the script or something like that. It's really
Which doesn't happen often, so they made a big deal of it at the time too. But no, you're absolutely right. It's an interesting show about a guy who's like a safecracker, and it's very fedoras and mysterious tap dancing people in the background, and like it has that cool guy, smoke-filled lounge aesthetic. But it is a cool show, as that art award shows. It was a cool show in a theatrical sense, not just in a Takarazuka sense. But I'll just blah blah about Hanafusa Mari forever. Wow Yoka, I don't know. That's the funny thing, is that like she was my what do they call it? Your hiiki. Yeah. She was the one who pulled me in. So I kind of can't be objective about her basically at all. I just love everything that she does. I remember buying like her photo books. One of them's called Be Natural, where she has very minimal makeup and she's on these beautiful Hawaiian beaches and stuff. And I just stared at her and like, this is the most gorgeous woman I have ever seen.
Wow, she is really, really beautiful.
And I would say, maybe without being perfect at all three things, she's a triple threat, acting, singing, and dancing, was all very solid. She was just very solid stage performer, and such a big presence, which obviously you would cultivate after being a top star for 6 years. But so, yeah, she just... Their era of reigning king and queen was just something else, and I would say they finished strong with Never Say Goodbye. It's a very epic, big show that it's hard to outdo for me, because I feel like it has a lot of like kind of realism, or like adult. It's very adult, which especially with a top Musumeyaku, sometimes you feel like their roles can be very childish. As Carly was saying about the top Musumeyaku can often get shafted, and Never Say was this very adult romance between two people who say, we ideologically have something that we both believe in, and we want to keep chasing that and express truth. Wao's character through her photography, and Hana's character through her like screenwriting or playwriting, and that's such a like I said, a true romance kind of a story to tell. And then, of course, on the backdrop of the Spanish Civil War, which is very, like, full of drama and people dying and a lot of, what would you call it, like a sense of impending doom that throws all these people together. And so, sorry, I'm, like, putting out an ad advertisement for Never Say Goodbye. Get it on TIP.
Julie, you did that script,
I look
right?
back on it now and I cringe at some of the wording choices, but it is simply a very good show, I think. And so they ended strong, and they were just a fantastic Tom Combi.
Yeah, I feel like back at the time when they were top stars, there wasn't as much fandom online, because Hankyu kind of crushed
they came
a lot of like fandom stuff online. But yes, but I remember there were a lot of fans who actually had like comics about Takarazuka, and there was one girl who did fan comics about Takahana. Like, she was a huge fangirl, and they were amazing. They were super cute.
I'm remembering this now.
I don't know if they're still online. I'll have to see if they are.
Those were so cute. Now I remember when we were all like trading those comics around and like being like, oh my god, so true, you know. Fun.
Yeah, but I remember she like was fascinated with Takako's hair and how it kind of she didn't slick her hair back like a lot of otokoyaku did. She always left it kind of loose, and it always ruffled. Like I can't like ruffle. I can't even think of how to say it in English. It's such a Japanese thing, but it was,
awesome.
It was funny. Always cracked me up. You know what? To save on time, because we are running a little long, let's just do one, and I know that's cruel.
You could cut my long-winded history lesson that I took everybody's time up by doing. I'm sorry.
No.
You
It
know what?
was a good background.
I love how that worked because it actually ended up talking about a lot of
It was
people,
great.
so.
That's like what I wanted to do for every episode, but the only problem is for every other troop, it would have taken 5 hours.
There's so much history. Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Jen is cruelly making us choose one.
Oh, no.
All right. Well, I feel okay about, because I had one I definitely wanted to do, and the other ones I was running back and forth. So I'm going to say Harukaze Misato, who is class of 2002. And the first time I really noticed her was in Aru, which is Yamato Yugo's first show, where Mi-chan plays Sherlock Holmes and Harukaze Misato, or Mi-chan, plays Watson. And for the record, even if you see it written out, you can see that Mi-chan is shorter than Mi-chan, but even Japanese fans will sometimes mix them up because they sound so similar. But so she was first in that. And so on one hand, she could do these kind of really cute, over-enthusiastic roles. Like she played Dick Gumshoe in Phoenix Wright. But then... but at the same time, she also had a really, really gorgeous voice. So when you let her shine, she was really good. And so, unfortunately, of the 3 88s of Soragumi, Hoshodai, Hasumi Yuya, and Harukaze Misato, none of them really ever got on the top star track, but Mi-chan got a lot of good roles over the years, and I was really excited. I hadn't seen her in a number of years, and one of the things that I got to see when I went back to make trips was Ocean's 11, and she and Mi-chan were reunited for that. And then one story I have to tell is that, and I think, like, the longer Mi-chan's been retired, like, the more I'm getting, I don't care when it comes to talking about this kind of thing. But, so I was in Japan for The Merry Widow. This was in December of 2013, and Harukaze Misato had just retired a few weeks ago, and I remember I was in the theater, and, I saw her, and it was really exciting, because I never thought I'd get to see Mi-chan in the flesh again. And then it was Daimachi time, because I was part of Mi-chan's fan club, and, Mi-chan was taking forever to come out, and it was, also I kept on not seeing, Harukaze Misato come out the stage door, because normally when OG are there, they typically leave through the stage door.
But they
and
go
so
really
it's taking
quickly.
Forever, and then
they zip out right after the show's over.
But then at the end, they came out together, and it was really, really cute. So Harukaze Misato actually walked out with Mi-chan, and they were adorable, and from what I can tell, they still continue to be friends.
Can I just interrupt for a second and say this is really, really funny because their nicknames sound so similar. So can you just one more time for the listeners?
Yeah.
So Harukaze Misato's nickname is
Mi-chan, or Mi-chan with the elongated mi. Right, yeah.
And
so
Hokusho Kairi's nickname is
Mi-chan with a little. It's more of a. It's a stop after the mi part. And also, so Harukaze Misato's nickname, her actual name, her first name is Misato,
so.
Right? Yeah, whereas Mi-chan's comes from Michiko. And I think with native Japanese speakers, you can hear it a little bit better, and I'm not doing the best job of it. Anyway, but yeah, so they, and I think also a lot of, like, people who are younger than Mi-chan would refer to her as Michiko-san, so maybe that helps.
That's true. Well, I should bounce off of Mi-chan 88th and go to my beloved 88th Musumeyaku, Hanakage Arisu. Yay! Pretty soon after I got into Soragumi, of course, I was scanning the background for every baby ever, and she was the little Meg Doreen character in Phantom. and I was just like, who is this? And found out that she'd also done the Shinko lead for Phantom, and I watched her career as she racked up 4 Shinko leads, which for an Otokoyaku or a Musumeyaku is a lot. And she did a bow in 2006 with Eriko Nanaho Hikaru. But her growth was so great to watch. Kind of like every star, she starts out looking kind of like skinny and scared and not really knowing what they're doing. And I remember Aris-chan saying that when she did Phantom Shinko lead, she was too excited to be nervous. She didn't know fear yet. She didn't know the fear of being in the spotlight. She was just so overjoyed that she was like Ken 2 and she was getting this Shinko lead. But then by the time she did Never Say Goodbye, which obviously, as I expressed before, I have a huge, big place in my heart for, when she did Never Say Shinko, she knew fear. And she knew how much pressure there was to tell this awesome adult story. And she took her craft so seriously. It sounds so pretentious to say that, but like she took it so much to heart. And also, when she did her Shinko lead in 2008, Reimi no Kaze, she was like what they call the Shinko Kumicho, where she has to lead her fellow Shinjin Koan members. She's the top of the list, so she has to be the
she makes
force,
the speeches and all that stuff.
force who keeps the Shinko members together as their leader. And she took that all very seriously. It was very emotional for her to not only be the Shinko Kumicho, but then all of her 88th classmates were like in lead roles around her. So it was like, it's really a powerful feeling for all of them. Gosh, I can't even, I don't even know where to start and end with Aris-chan memories. Everything that she did, her bow lead was, kind of just like sweet and cute, like you do with Musumeyaku, but she grew from that to this Kumicho that I was talking about in her Shinko. That was her last Shinko lead, and then in her very last Shinko Paradise Prince, she played like a more background character, but she was Shinko Kumicho again, obviously. But the big things for her would have been Singing in the Rain, which I talked about, which she just worked her butt off, and she ran circles around Tani and Tomu, teaching them how to tap dance. So, because she'd been studying tap since she was like 5 or something, so she knew tap better than they did, and she just lived, ate, slept, and breathed Singing in the Rain. And then her other really good roles, I would say, were Kocho in Oayama Karen, which was Yuhi's not grand theater debut, but her like sort of top debut in Soragumi, her first show in Soragumi. She played such a very adult character who was kind of sad, tragic, and not tragic, just adult, and again kind sad. Of a semi-leader of like the Oni, the demons in this crazy world of demons that they're in, where she knows how to boss the younger ones around and make sure they know their place, and but she has this, pining for Yuhi's character, and it's kind of just melancholy, and she just played it very beautifully. And then lastly would have been her bow lead, Jashant, which again was this journey of a young woman to an adult woman, and she's got the chops. I mean, and her singing improved so much over the years. When you have a favorite, you're usually willing to put a lot of things by the wayside. But I can say with certainty that if you compare her cute, weedy little voice in like the Phantom Shinko, and then you watch like her much deeper, more mature voice in Jashant, it's amazing to see her growth.
I'm just going to interrupt and say that Julie's cat is named after one of the characters in Jashant.
It's really funny because his name is Sharuru, which was the male lead, Kacha Nagina Rumi's character in Jashant. But then actually I never call him Sharuru, I just call him the boy cat. So it's sort of like didn't stick. But my friends, like my Japanese friends, they will be like, how's Shararu? Because, of course, they think that's so sweet that I named him after Kacha's character. Okay, Carly and Jen.
Actually, before you do that, I'm going to gracefully bow out because I have plans I have to get to today, but it was so fun doing Soragumi fangirling together.
It's the best!
Yay.
Yay.
All right, talk soon.
Have fun, Becca.
Later.
Thank you for coming. All right, Carly, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm sad that I'm going to have to cut out my talk about the greatest kumicho ever, but I can't not talk.
You're cutting out sushi? Then okay, then you gotta
Oh,
do
that's not fair that she gets to do too. No, go for it. Please talk about Kumicho.
It's
She's the
Kumicho,
best.
Can we all collectively fangirl
Yes.
about sushi, maybe? And then I'll talk about
I
mine.
should say that I really loved their previous Kumicho to Marietta-san, whose stage name I'm going to forget. But she was also just like she was Wow's classmate, actually. And so they had a very good camaraderie. Misato Maya was Kumicho before our current Kumicho, who is Kotobutsuki Tsukasa. And go, talk about her.
I don't even know what to say other than I love her more than anything.
She's so again, she's a very solid actor.
Yeah,
she
she is.
brings such a presence to every role that she plays, whether it's this very stern patriarchal figure or whether she's this goofy scientist.
That's
you
completely
know.
true.
And then her dancing is just
Yes. So one of my favorite things about her is that she still dances the same choreography with everybody, even during shows, which I guess Tsukigumi kind of ruined this, but she had been one of the sort of younger kumichos. She's really not all that young anymore, but
no, she's not.
I guess this is not something that the older ones could really maybe pull off, but her dancing is still incredible.
It depends on who it is.
I guess.
I'd say even the kumicho. No, I think all of the kumichos still pretty much are good dancers. At least the otokoyaku.
Do we have anybody left who debuted in the 70s? I don't think we do, right?
Hanagumi.
Hanagumi?
Who's their kumicho right now?
God, who is it?
I feel like I know, but I'm forgetting.
Anyway, Sushi is exceptional. she's an exceptional dancer.
Is exceptional. And she wrote a stupid pun into her stage name, and she's just that defines her basically, right? That if you want to know something about Kumicho Soragumi, she named herself Kotobuki Tsukasa, which is a pun on the kanji used in the word sushi, and her nickname is Sushi because her family runs a sushi restaurant. She's such a dork.
She's a dork.
It defines Soragumi's energy. That she's like that, that is her character.
I saw their bow hall recently, Partial Time Travel, which was Sakuragi Minato's lead, and I think Sushi was the best part of the show, honestly. Honestly. She played two different characters, I think. They were both utterly ridiculous, but even though they're utterly ridiculous, you're right. She just brings, she brings so much even to the stupidest roles. She's both having fun and legitimizing these truly idiotic comedic roles.
I like how you put that. I'm sure that's true.
And then wiping the floor with all of the young kids in the otokoyaku dance. It's truly incredible.
Small shout out to the other one that I would have done is Sakuragi Minato as a young up and comer that everyone keep an eye on her.
Yes, definitely.
Real quick, I just need to make a fix because I was thinking of when I was saying Hanagumi, Takasho Mizuki, who's Saori-san. For some reason, I thought she was older than she is.
No,
she's actually Sushi's classmate.
That's right.
But I guess I was thinking of Natsui Yo, who's not Kumicho anymore.
No, she's Senka now. Wait,
1976.
She's still in Senka though?
Yes.
Yes, she still, like, does all the dances, though. Like, she's an amazing dancer, too.
Saori-san or,
well, both.
The other one, yeah. Hachi-san. Well. Sorry, thank you.
Hachi.
Okay, back to Carly.
Should I...
You're like the one I was actually going to talk about.
The one I was actually going to talk about is Kazuki Sora, who I have to talk about because she...
Oh, yeah.
she's one of my personal favorites right now. I fell in love with her when a friend showed me Asuka Manato's Brilliant Dreams, where she recreated a bunch of classic Takarazuka dances. And Sora was maybe Ken 3 at the time, and she was such a little nerd. She played this, she was like a reporter. She's also an amazing dancer. So like they pulled her in for the first episode to participate in the dance, and then the rest of the episodes, she was just this like nerdy reporter that kept bothering everybody. And
that's fantastic.
I thought she was really cute, but I mean, cute isn't usually enough to do it for me. So I was just like, oh, that's cute. And then I saw Kaname's last show, which was, oh God, what is the title of that show? Oath of the Midnight Sun or something
it's
like that.
White.
Yeah.
Shido.
And Phoenix, Phoenix Takarazuka. And Sora was still quite young at the time, but she was prominent enough in several of the dance scenes if you're actually in the theater. And she was on the Ginkgo a couple of times too, and I was so like shocked by the difference between that nerdy little reporter and this. I mean, she's still like 4 feet tall, but
she's one of those compact but powerful.
Her like passion and energy, and mostly her dance prowess, but just how she like pulled off that really amazing otokuyaku energy despite being both tiny and a giant loser. I was just like really enamored by that gap. So I was like kind of watching her, but Soragumi wasn't really my troupe. And then of course when they ruined me with Hot Eyes, I decided that I would allow myself to pay her the full attention that I always wanted to. And
nice.
She's really, I think she's a triple threat. I think she's a great actress. She's an amazing singer. She has an incredible natural otokuyaku voice. Like even her speaking voice is really, really husky.
That's lucky.
It is lucky. So I guess I have a thing for small people with deep voices, but I really like that about her. But mostly she's like, her dancing blows me away. She's an absolutely incredible dancer. She was in Ace Motion, which I saw here, and it was like, that was one of the ways it pushed all my trash buttons, because I think it was like the most
trash button.
In addition to being all of this horrible nostalgic J-pop, it was probably like the most Sora I've ever been served in one serving. Like
that sounds delicious. I think I need to take a taste of it.
She got a lot to do because it was a dance show, and that made me very, very happy. She's still kind of like on and off with Grand Theater shows because she's got so many people in front of her. But I love watching her. I hate going home because she doesn't make it to the DVDs in all of the scenes that I want her to. But I love watching her while I'm here. She debuted in 2010. She's in 96.
10. That's
so
right.
She just recently became an upperclassman.
So she's past her Ken 7. She's an upperclassman now.
That is so weird to me. I'm sorry. I know that I'm like this old B fan, but man, when I look at all the people who graduated from Shinko's, I'm just like, what?
I know, I can't believe
because Sakuragi Minato was a year before her. She was in 95th. And I'm just like, what? This baby that I randomly was like, you're cute and you keep doing Kacha's roles in Shinko's, so I'm gonna watch you. And then just like, what? She's had at least one bout.
She's had 2 bows. We've got 2 95th knee bandes now.
Oh right, Because of
Yeah.
Serika Toa, or who
Yeah.
else were we
Well,
talking
Rei
about? Oh,
Makoto
yeah.
has been
Okay.
Nibante,
He's kind
and
of the...
once Serika Toa moves to Soragumi, I'm pretty sure Yuzuka Rei is going to be Hanagumi's Nibante. And that's just so crazy to me.
True. Oh, yeah, because, oh, yeah, man. Where has the time
Isn't that
gone?
crazy?
It is crazy. Okay, Jen, who do you want to talk
All
about?
right. As usual, I'm gonna pick an oldie.
Yay.
I want to talk about Yumihiro.
Not that
Tomochi.
old, considering, I mean, she didn't retire so long ago.
She retired almost
my
5
God.
years ago now.
Oh, my heart!
I know. But when we were talking about like the atmosphere of the troupe earlier, and I said it's the tall troupe. It's because like when I became a fan at that time, like I think the 10 like tallest otokoyaku in Takarazuka were all in Soragumi. Like Soragumi just had all the really tall
We really were
otokoyaku.
the Tolly McTollerson person troupe.
Yeah, and Tomochin is like 179 centimeters, so she was definitely up there. Like I mentioned earlier, I am not the biggest Soragumi fan, but I checked in when Yuhi was top star, and Tomochin is being so tall and being like, I guess she was kind of like San Yonbante-ish at the time, like
She kind of always played these solid, like, it was funny because she played a lot of white hat roles for a while, and then in Tani era, she played like all the villains.
But I just really enjoyed watching her dance. Like, she's the kind of otokoyaku that I'm like, this is the kind of otokoyaku I should really be liking. Like, somehow I keep, like, ending up with these fairy types, and I don't even like the fairy types, so I'm like, I don't understand. So Yumihiro is much more my aesthetic, like, and I still have not seen her role. We were talking about Phoenix Wright earlier. They did a Phoenix Wright 3, and she had the lead role in that one just before she retired. I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't either. I've seen Phoenix 2, but I haven't seen Miles Edgeworth.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, one of these days I'll have to watch it. But I'm sure, Julie, you can add more about Tomochin. I just know that out of all the otokoyaku in Soragumi, she was one that kind of stood out to me.
Well, it's like I just said. She had this big beaming face, and obviously this tall, and she seemed so like tall and gangly, and like, you know, her and Ahi had like this, like you were saying, Yonbante thing that was kind of going on in WoW era Soragumi. And you know, she was just like one of those cuties who was like up and coming. And then suddenly when Tani became top, she just ate it up playing the villains. And she, over and over again, she was like these smarmy, you love to hate them kinds of bad guys. And so it was funny, kind of, again, I was rereading my old journal, and I was making jokes with people about how, like, okay, Tomochin's had enough villains. If she wants to play a white hat again, she's allowed to. Because it was exactly that kind of terminology where in the otome, when they say, what kind of roles would you like to play, she, in her earlier days, kept saying how much she wanted to play villains. And then I think it did, in her otome profile, it's, like, changed back to where after she'd played a ton of them, she was like, I want to play a white role again.
That's funny.
Yeah. She's a very accomplished actress. She's a great singer. She has a gorgeous voice. And
yes.
Yeah. I don't know if I can be objective about her dancing.
I think in the last episode, which hasn't gone up yet but will eventually, like, my happy thing was the poster, and she was one of the actresses on it, so she just looks really pretty. Beautiful OG.
Yes.
All right. Whew. Was that
I think
everybody?
we hit everybody.
Well, did we hit all the points that we're trying to hit?
I guess that was going to be my next thing, to wrap it up. Did we miss anything? Anything we want to add about Soragumi or any of the actresses?
I think we even made it through all the top stars.
Yeah, we did.
We did, yes.
Because again, it's so easy to go through 20 years of history and just I hope I did justice talking about every top star. I think I, unfortunately, didn't give enough love to Kaname. I did see Galactic Heroes on DVD, and I did see Kaname live as Yuhi's Nibante in Yuhi's last show. And, you know, like I said, she just has a very different energy from some of the other tops, but that's always going to be the case. They reinvent the troupe underneath them, and all of the underclassmen always talk about how they learned something from each top star, and that was, you know, true of Yuhi, it's true of Kaname, and I think I'm just horribly biased towards Soragumi. I know so much about what has gone on in the background with each different era of the troupe, but I'm so excited to see. I've come around. I think I've come around to Makaze Suzuho, and I really. You guys might have been like following my live tweeting of Elizabeth, but I was like, whoa, this is like the first time ever that I like Franz Josef, you know, like he's kind of not meant to be a likable character. He's meant to be like, you know, even though Elizabeth has like this, you know, childhood, you know, when she's very young and naive romance, she quickly learns that like he's her enemy. But like for the first time, I was like, oh, I really want their marriage to work out, and I want them to be happy with each other again. And so that's all down to Makaze. That's down to her acting with Mirion, and I think I finally, after kind of many years away, saw her as like an adult actor and not just that dorky kid in the background, which is when everybody was talking about her in like Scarlet Pimpernel way back in the day. That image of her is still in my mind.
Such a Hoshigumi.
I know. But yeah, so I'm very excited to see what she does. I think she does have the right look or whatever, the right feel for Soragumi. And then Madoka-chan, man, I was just bowled over. Unfortunately, I've only watched the first half of Zun-chan Sakuragi Minato's Other Bow, the Portrait of the Air. And Madoka is just like sweet and sad, and or that maybe they're all sweet and sad, I don't know.
I think Madoka's a great actress.
But yes, what I was going to say was then when I saw her young Rudolph in Elizabeth, just watching that DVD recently, she's almost like ethereal quality of how just her presence and her that part of young Rudolph is, you know, you could play it different ways, but she was so innocent, but and also in, like I said, this like ethereal way that I can't put my finger on. That kind of makes sense because Rudolph's life is kind of ephemeral. Oh, I tied it back to ephemeral love. Hey.
Oh no.
Oh.
Terrible Takarazuka.
Oh, that's funny
puns.
too because both Kaname and Awao did that show. Which, no, you're right. It's not a great show. Let's not talk about that one. But if I'm helping to wrap it up, basically the point is I'm so excited for the future of Soragumi.
Me too. I'm very sentimental about this current Soragumi because they kind of dragged me back into Soragumi, but
of course.
I'm really excited for the future too. They didn't change as much as I expected they were going to with this last announcement, and
transfers.
Yeah, I thought they were going to lose a lot more people to transfers. So I'm really excited that most of the pieces that I love are staying, and I've come to love Makun, but I also really love Makaze, and I think she and Kiki are going to be an absolutely lethal 1-2 punch. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yay! I look forward to it.
Yes. I feel like, I mean, doing this podcast has definitely hooked me back up more with, like, what's going on in Takarazuka. I'm still not going to say that I am up to date, but I think I'm excited, too, about what the new Soragumi is going to be like.
I think that's a good way to end on a high note, right?
Yeah, definitely. As always, listeners, please let us know what you think. Add your comments, stories, thoughts. We'd love to hear them. Thank you for listening. Julie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. Many thanks to Michael B. and the Arcanum String Quartet for their wonderful arrangement of Sumire no Hana Sakugoro. And thank you, listeners, for enjoying our podcast.